We'll go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Eller Mallchok, the Managing Director of Jumpstart Foundry. We're a pre-seed stage healthcare investment fund. We're making investments into 25 to 40 early stage companies every year. And part of the work that we do with founders is helping prepare them for really strong product market fit and those kind of critical next steps in fundraising or closing pilots and customers and ultimately strategic partners. In all of that work, I met John, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, maybe year or two. It's been a while.
I know. And so I have had the pleasure of getting to know John and his work with Astellas and have been so impressed with him. And I think, really the motivation behind me wanting to have him on here is to share all of the interesting ideas and innovative ideas that are kind of flowing through Astellas, and wanted to give you all the attendees today, kind of a sneak peek into what John thinks about all the time and where he thinks the market is going. And so with that, John, I'll ask you to just give a quick introduction of yourself, because I know you'll do a much better job than I.
No, all good. Thank you so much, Eller. Really happy to be here this afternoon, and it's been great getting to know you and Jumpstart Foundry over the past few years. Think it's a terrific organization. Happy we're connected that way. And so, good afternoon, everybody. John Baylor. I'm part of the corporate strategy and innovation team at Astellas, with our scope being the U.S. commercial division, even though we are an international pharmaceutical manufacturer based out of Tokyo. Definitely have interactions globally, but my primary scope is for our US brands. And as part of the corporate strategy and innovation team, we definitely do the traditional strategic work, but for today's purposes, I have a very strong focus on digital health as well. And I usually break it down into two sub-buckets. One is raising awareness of the importance and advantages of digital health across the broader organization, and whether that be in-person or virtual forums, newsletters or workshops or webinars, whatever it may be, just letting people know of what is occurring in the industry and how it may be applicable to their day-to-day jobs within Astellas and the pharmaceutical industry overall. But then the other more prioritized sub-bucket is supporting our prioritized brand teams and other functional teams with any pain points or hurdles they may be facing. Examples would include physician engagement or patient support or medication adherence. And it's constantly changing. It's always a moving target, which keeps things very interesting, difficult, but interesting. And, really from the connections we have with Jumpstart Foundry, for example, or other entrepreneurs or startups dependent upon the need that we're facing, we'll go to market and try and find the appropriate digital health solutions that may alleviate that pain point or bridge that gap, and then kind of help broker that relationship between the startup and the brand team. And it usually comes in the form of a pilot, and then if successful, a larger rollout follows. So always trying to keep our finger on the pulse and make new connections with everybody in the digital health industry, and love having conversations such as these so we can all discuss, how to best work together and what we see occurring in the industry.
And, something that even when we first started talking, I don't think I fully grasped is how much of a focus you have in digital health. I think for the most part, a lot of people just assume, okay, Astellas is a large pharmaceutical company that's really going to be focused on life science or biotech innovation. But what I've learned over the years is actually kind of particularly your focus has been tools, technology, anything to help support Astellas' work in reaching patients. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the work that you've done with entrepreneurs in your role, and maybe specifically digital health or healthcare IT entrepreneurs, and just give a few examples of, successful partnerships where it may not be the assumed, oh, it's a life science company and Astellas is partnering with them. That might orient people for the types of digital health and health IT that a large company like Astellas might be thinking about.
Yeah. And I'm going to do my best to answer this question, but let me know if I didn't answer the
Yeah,
question,
yeah.
and I can revise it and such. So I kind of eat, sleep, and breathe digital health ever since I started Astellas. Big passion of mine, big focus, and I think it's been received well at Astellas because, yes, at the core, we are a pharmaceutical manufacturer. We manufacture and sell drugs to treat diseases. But at the same time, one of our core values is just to improve patient outcome. And we have realized, just like all other pharmaceutical manufacturers, patient experience goes beyond the pill, right? I think we use the term beyond the pill often. And today's lifestyle, I think, even in and outside of healthcare, is becoming very digitally focused. We did have a digital focus before COVID, but now, especially with COVID, it's like everything's digital, like convenience and being able to do things remotely. But COVID aside, our focus on digital health and with, or digital health startups and IT startups that may help within a pharmaceutical manufacturer's ecosystem. Examples would include, we had a new indication the other year for one of our brands, and it got brought up in the line of defenses. So there was this kind of whole new patient population that we wanted to identify and be able to target and let the providers know, hey, by the way, there's this new indication of one of our brands. And so being able to, or trying to, I guess, identify, of course, those de-identified patients, but target into the specific areas. We worked with a data and analytics firm that not only hosts all the data, they had the analytical capabilities as well to run the appropriate algorithms with, the equations in place to identify those areas or health systems we may want to target, and then have a monthly reporting as well. Other success stories would include an app that we partnered with a vendor to develop to improve medication adherence for one of our brands, and that has gone very well. And just trying to continue to think about, I guess, almost any need we have, it's usually a digital health solution that can meet that need, right? That the entrepreneurs today are so adaptable and intelligent that the solutions they're building seem to be able to meet any need we're facing. And I don't think it's by accident that they're all kind of digitally focused. So I'll pause there. I hope I answered your question, but if there's any part I didn't, let me know.
No, I think that was really helpful. At least I think it provided some good context of, promoting new drugs, new pills that Astellas is putting out to market, and how can you better engage a patient. Tons of companies in the Jumpstart portfolio that certainly help with that, but obviously plenty on the call. So again, just I'll note, if you have a question or want to join in the conversation, feel free to message in the chat and I can promote you to talk or raise your hand. But I'll first I want to see if I can dig out of you, John, I always like calling them war stories because I think they're always helpful for other entrepreneurs to hear maybe some war stories of other entrepreneurs working with or starting, a partnership with Astellas. And so I'll tee it up in that, what would you say to an entrepreneur that is thinking about working with you or thinks they might be a good fit for partnering with a large pharma company like Astellas? Kind of what should they focus on, and how should they prepare for that? And then maybe along the way, if you have some war stories of here's how not to prepare, or maybe don't do this.
So I was thinking about war stories ahead of time, and I don't have like a specific story, but I have some comments. In any event, I guess I do have some specific pieces of advice that I would like to share that I believe strongly in, because we speak with the entrepreneurs, our team, and then we go to the brands. The brands ask us questions, and I get the same questions all the time. So I know what information I need to bring out of the brands, which is fine. I'm happy to answer the questions, but it's great if the entrepreneurs or startups when coming to meet with us or other pharmaceutical manufacturers, I'm assuming they'll have similar questions. They include, have you worked with other pharmaceutical manufacturers previously? Being able to show success stories, especially for Astellas, goes a long way. And if you haven't, okay, that's fine. Are you in talks with them? What are you talking to them about? I'm not trying to, dig up some trade secrets out of your conversations. We're just trying to relate, or find out, are other people doing this? Are we the only ones interested? And maybe you've worked with providers or health systems or patients directly, direct to consumer in the past. That's okay as well. But if we are having the conversation, I, in my mind, probably have an idea of what the opportunity may look like between Astellas and your startup. But I want to hear from you as well. Like, what do you envision this partnership looking like? Because if you don't envision a partnership, I don't really know why we're talking. Like, I'm happy to have a friendly cup of coffee kind of thing, but everybody's super busy. So have you worked with pharma manufacturers in the past? What do you envision this partnership looking like? Beyond the specific success stories, what are your growth figures, right? What's your success to date? And not necessarily, how many downloads you have, but are there figures that reflect the efficacy of your digital health startup, right? Like, we reduce stress by X% in these patients with this type of cancer. And just really some punchy lines or punchy statistics go a long way. Again, if you're very early startup, you may not have that, but here's how we envision measuring success of our product. Here's what we think we could do for patients or providers. And, being specific to the pharmaceutical manufacturer you're speaking to. For example, Astellas, it's pretty much public knowledge what drugs we have and what those drugs do. So coming in and I don't care if you can't pronounce our drugs, because it's always hard to do so, and it took me a while to appropriately do so. But just be like, oh yeah, I know Zospata does this, and I think we'd be a really good fit for that. Or I know you guys have a focus in urology, and we'd be a good fit for that. Rather than just coming in and be like, oh, Astellas, like a pharmaceutical company, like we want to work with pharmaceutical companies. I get that, but if you can make it specific, that goes a long way. Transitioning to war stories, as I mentioned, I don't have a specific story. I do kind of have some pet peeves almost, where if I or one of my team members asks a question, it's okay to say you don't know or you don't have the answer. What I don't think is okay is like try kind of going around skirting the question and just talking about something else, right? And I understand you may have something else to talk about, but that's not answering my question, right? And that just makes me feel like you either didn't hear me or you don't want to answer my question or whatever. And again, completely fine if you don't have it and you want to get back to me, totally cool. But if a question's asked, that's kind of why I asked you, Eller, I was like, did I answer your question, right?
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way. And I guess we might have had pretty good experiences with entrepreneurs up to this point. I wouldn't, when following up with us, because a lot of times we just have to keep in contact over the months, and we have a lot of conversations with startups where we might not have an immediate need, but maybe we have one 6 or 12 months down the road and I can just pick up the phone and call them. I guess being able to keep in contact in a casual, friendly manner, and this is just speaking for me, right? I don't know other pharmaceutical manufacturers. I don't know maybe about other people at Astellas, but for me, Eller, like you and I just kind of jump on the phone and talk. We of course talk business, but just it's a very friendly and casual conversation. And I think it makes it that much more enjoyable and, looking forward to those catch ups rather than just, okay, here's the update, and then signing off. So just keeping it, remember, we're all people at the end of the day. We all have the goal of helping patients and advancing healthcare, and let's just form a friendship through that. And I feel like, well, it's a much more efficient and fun way of working. So.
Yeah. No, that's really great. I feel like sometimes, founders really need to, and I try to coach them, but founders really need to hear that of, the Astellas is like, you are not looking for perfectly formed companies or innovations. Like, you're part of an innovation and strategy team. Like, you're looking for cutting edge, new, might be messy, and it's okay. You don't have to have everything figured out, but if you know what you know, admit what you don't know, and are very clear and have an open
Yeah,
and transparent line of communication, it to me, I've seen some of our founders form really strong partnerships with organizations and firms that can, really change the game for them. So
exactly.
I
Yeah.
think it's a good point, and I'm glad you made it. Um, with that, I kind of want to switch context out. Now, I thank you so much for giving some context of, how entrepreneurs can approach you, or how you like to communicate and work with them.
Mhm.
Um, I'm getting some good questions both in the Q&A and the chat, just on probably my two follow-up questions, John, that I sent to you earlier, of kind of specific themes, innovation themes, and trends that you're seeing in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mhm.
And so I'm going to bypass, I might come back to my questions at the end to close things up, but I'd actually love for David Connor to actually ask your question live. So David, I've given you the ability to talk if you want to.
Yes. Hello, and thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is, I actually have a 30-year career in pharma. And so my first question is, big pharma is notorious for perpetuating really the status quo and playing it safe and resisting change. How do you and Astellas pursue balance between, the safety of the past and the old way of doing things and the innovation of the future? It's, you're a highly regulated industry. So I'd love to hear the
Mhm.
philosophy on that.
Yeah. No, it's a great question and a great point, and one it's a struggle I deal with every day. I go to sleep thinking about it, and I wake up thinking about it. But as I guess, let me make the brief point, as I mentioned earlier, being able to show that other people are doing this, or other companies are doing this, and the success they're having, like, you can't ignore that, right? Like, if I put a business case in front of leadership, be like, here are 3 pharmaceutical companies that are doing this that we could be doing, and this is how they've improved their sales or improved patient relationships. Like, if they ignore that, I don't know if that's a company I want to be associated with. So, but beyond showing the evidence and case studies, we're actually in the midst of, kind of standing up almost an official innovation center, and uh, don't hold my feet to the fire, right? Like, it's not like I'm representing Astellas, but point being, my team and I are speaking to leadership and speaking to others about changing or enhancing the mindsets of individuals across the organization. And Astellas is a super successful organization. And David, to your point, like pharmaceutical, like, why am I going to change? Why I'm going to try and fix what's not broken? If I'm doing 102% of my sales, like, why do I want to do anything? And my response to that would be, what if you could do 110% of your sales, right? Or do it in half the time, or with less resources or bandwidth, and being able to, I guess, go to the individuals, that the appropriate stakeholders that can make these changes. And most often it comes from leadership, and showing them ways on how this could be done, and reminding them that other companies are doing this both in and outside of pharma. If you think about Nike or Amazon or Walmart or Bayer within it, or Johnson and Johnson, like, I I developed a whole bunch of case studies, and it wasn't hard to find these things. It's like you just Google innovation and they all pop up, right? And being able to show that these companies at the top of their game have devoted such a vast amount of resources to this. Some of them have offices just for innovation. And it's not convincing them, it's proving to them that innovation and digital health, it's no longer nice to have. 5 years ago, maybe it was, right? Cutting edge kind of thing. And I still think it's cutting edge, don't get me wrong. But my personal opinion now is, unless you have a very strong focus on innovation and thinking about doing things differently and not not being afraid to fail and ideating and iterating and being brave. If you're not doing those things, you're going to get left behind, or we're going to get left behind. And, David, I know this is a very long-winded answer, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have these conversations with the appropriate individuals across the organization that can then help spread the message or champion or advocate on behalf of innovation and digital health to reach their teams. And it just kind of, snowballs, but really just letting them know others have done this. They've been successful. We can do this. Here's why we need to do this. Here's how we can do this, and really just providing kind of a game plan rather than just saying, hey, we need to innovate. Great. How do you plan to innovate? Like, what do you plan to do? And having some tangible plans and processes in place speaks volumes as well, or at least it has at Astellas thus far. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's helpful. The only thing I would dig, just to drill in a little bit more on that, if you don't mind, is, obviously having the case studies, is a natural go-to when you have the case studies. But when you're a new concept in the marketplace, I mean, healthcare in general is, historically filled with a lot of beautiful firsts, right?
Yes.
Brave men and women who discovered a new and better way to do things. And, that sense of pioneering and innovation in big corporate seems rare. And I'm curious, in terms of the power structure, and let's just use Astellas, where is that sort of courage around innovation going to come from, do you think?
For us, at least, for our team, and Astellas overall, it comes from a need. I completely agree with you, like pioneering in the first within healthcare. It's so exciting. And when it works out, it's amazing and it's awesome. But we are not going to be the ones to bring something forward unless there's a very strong need for it. We need to find the problem and then the solution. That's how we approach it within Astellas. And I would think that's how, well, not everything, right? But the majority, I feel like the success stories, I'm thinking of like the iPod, for example, or the iPhone. A lot of times people don't know what they need until it's given to them. But within healthcare, and I guess I can only speak for my team and Astellas broadly, is whenever we're thinking about a solution, the first question pops in my mind: is this a need at Astellas? Mm-hmm. And if it is, all right, let's dig deeper. If it isn't, let's set this aside. I have the contact. We can reach out when there is a need. But if we propose something at Astellas and there isn't a desire or need for it, it's not going far. Does that help?
Yeah. Okay. That does. And then I guess my last question is, what is Astellas's greatest pain point in commercialization of their therapies post FDA approval? Where is the system broken, do you think?
Oh God, I feel like this is a dangerous question for me to answer. Again, just my opinion. I do not represent the Astellas organization legally, but I I feel like this is not just specific to Astellas, but providers are so busy, understandably so. God bless them. They have the patients to treat, they have the notes to input, they have all this knowledge regarding medications and everything. That's where I personally see a challenge of ours with the commercial products, is making sure providers are fully aware of, when our medications are appropriate to be thought of or prescribed. Not to say they are not prescribing them correctly, but making sure that we're reaching them at the right point within their workflow So they have all the most up-to-date evidence-based treatment guidelines, because the products Astellas have, and as all other pharmaceutical manufacturers have, do very good when they are prescribed at the appropriate time. And so we just want to make sure, that's the biggest challenge I see, is making sure the providers have the right information at the right time, so they may prescribe and treat patients to the best of their capabilities.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Great answers, John. I have two questions kind of come in really around clinical trials, and again, where you see, and this is just your opinion, John, kind of where you see clinical trials evolving over the next 2 to 5 years, and particularly Will Krugman, I'm going to take you off, allow you to speak and ask your question here in just a second, but Will specifically asked about how clinical trials evolve as siteless trials become much more mainstream. So Will, if you want to join in here, you're welcome to participate.
Hey, can you hear me? Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the question, the nail on the head there. I'm just curious where you see clinical trials evolving over the next few years, just as the marketplace kind of evolves with siteless trials. Really just want to hear your thoughts on where the industry is headed and how the bigger pharma companies view clinical trials and select trial sites and that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability, noting that us on the commercial side, we don't, like, I come across a lot of solutions that relate to clinical trials, and the appropriate ones I do pass along to our clinical trials team, but they're kind of separate from the commercial side. So I only know so much.
Yeah, of course.
But that being said, I think you kind of already stated my answer to your question is, I think clinical trials are going to be largely remote over the next few years, as they are beginning to become as we speak today. And that, I think, spans the entire spectrum of recruiting patients, of monitoring patients, and conducting the analysis post clinical trial. I've come across a number of solutions that are great, that are all about getting users on board or participants on board within the clinical trial in a very efficient, safe, user-friendly manner that, for both the pharmaceutical company as well as the participants, is super seamless. And I think that's very important, to make sure all the questions participants may have are asked, rather than having there be any confusion or trepidation going into the clinical trial. The clinical trial itself, I think we're all aware of, and probably a good number of people on the line right now deal with solutions of remote monitoring, and whether it be a wearable or an app or an at-home solution that kind of sits on your kitchen counter, or whatever it may be, being able to kind of track patients at home as they progress through the trial. I think those are, becoming, there's more and more of them in the market, but they're also improving their solutions and learning as they go. And I think that's going to be super powerful. And then, I guess the post-trial treatment, that's kind of, or post-trial analysis, that's kind of mostly remote as well, I guess. But, just having the solutions out there that are, again, continuing to strengthen themselves. I don't know if, as I'm speaking, just thinking out loud, if there are going to be solutions that kind of do the whole shebang from beginning to end, or maybe there'll be some M&As within the clinical trial digital health solutions space. But it's always going to be a part of healthcare, right? Because we're always going to try and develop new drugs to help patients. So I think there's always going to be a need there, and so the demand is there, and I think the supply and the solutions will continue to advance. And patients just, I wouldn't want to go into an office or a doctor's office or a site to do a clinical trial when I can do it at home. And I think the market's definitely trending that way.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Will, for your question. So, John, I have two questions, and I actually might just get you to quickly answer them. So, Siddharth and Islam, I am going to ask these questions for you. So, number one, and again, John, I know this is not necessarily your expertise. You're much more on the commercialization side versus, drug like development and post-clinical trials and whatnot. But just a quick clarifying questions. Does Astellas work with early stage startups that are still in pre-clinical studies on their methods? Do you know that?
I don't know that, but yeah, I guess I'll just say I don't know.
Okay. That is totally fine. Like I said, I know, and for everyone on the call, John's much more on, drugs developed, commercializing it, and getting it out, making sure that it's engaged, or that providers and patients are engaging with it well. And then the next question is, what is the best way for early stage or pre-seed stage startups to reach out to you or to learn more about kind of what are the milestones maybe that they need to hit before reaching out to you?
So I don't think there are milestones you necessarily need to hit before having a conversation. Not only do I enjoy having these conversations, but it's part of my job, right? And to know the solutions out there and how they're developing. And yes, you may be a very early stage startup. That's not all bad. A big pro of that is the flexibility. And if you're, not to say you better bend to all of our demands or anything like that, like we don't want that, but we could help your startup kind of grow or develop based on pharmaceutical manufacturer needs. Like by no means am I like an expert or a professor in this space, but I'm more than happy to have conversations and let you know focus areas of Astellas and focus areas of our teams and how what we are looking for, just kind of expanding upon the conversation we're having this afternoon. So if to get in front of at least me, I'm pretty sure you could probably like find me online somewhere or call Astellas or LinkedIn, or I'm happy to, Eller, if you want to shoot out my email address, because I'm not going to turn down conversations. I'm definitely not going to ghost anybody or anything like that, right? Like it may be a busy time for me, but so might have to push the call for a month or something like that. But having the conversation is probably just doing that in the first place. And if you needed a milestone to work towards that you would feel more comfortable before speaking to me or somebody else like me, a pharmaceutical manufacturer, I would just, what is your product or solution? What is it going to do? And how do you envision a partnership between us and you? Because that's, at the end of the day, we all want partnerships. And if you have that in mind, I think you have enough to have a conversation.
So I will certainly share your contact information with those on the call and your LinkedIn. And so I think the other kind of follow-up question to that is, how do you not get lost in the noise?
Yeah.
And I think what you kind of hit the nail on the head there of like being very clear in that first communication. Hi, my name is blank, and this is my company. Here's what we do. Here's here's what it is.
Yeah.
Clearly in one or two sentences. Here's how we envision a partnership, and let that sit there. And to me, and John, you can agree or disagree with this, but I generally think those first emails, particularly when I'm evaluating companies about Jumpstart Foundry investing, the clearer you can be in fewer words, the better. And I can't remember who the famous quote is if I had more time, I'd write a shorter letter.
Honestly.
Yes, is like that is that is big advice for for any entrepreneur. The shorter and more brief but very clear and concise you can be, the better. And my guess is that can lead to a very quick answer from you, John, on yes, this is something that I'm interested in learning more about, or no, not a fit at this time.
Yeah. So 2 quick points on that. First, it's funny you mention that. Like a lot of the emails I write to like leadership or brand teams, just updating them, I have to write it out walk away for 10 minutes and come back and be like, okay, I need to cut this by like 75%. And so like, then I kind of rewrite it or cut it all out. And that's an internal email. I'm not even like trying to pitch to a company. So I agree with that. I thought of another wartime or pet peeve, cold emailing. And I would imagine it's just through like automation, at least for me, it's not going to work. It's just not. So unless we have a connection or you say, hey, John, saw you on Jumpstart Foundry with Eller. Thanks so much. I'm reaching out to you because of why. And I'm assuming it's going to be the same for other, maybe not, but for other people, similar individuals in my place, find a connection. It's just like interviewing, right? And going for a job, like find somebody that can vouch for you. Or like once conferences are starting to open up again, let's have a conversation there, right? If you see me coming to the conference, you usually can see all the participants that are about to come. Reach out and be like, hey, would love to buy you a cup of coffee or, a bagel in the morning to do that. And having those in-person conversations, that works. Sending an email, even if it has my name on it, saying, hey, John, and then just cold, it's not going to go far, I guess. Like I need to see that, I don't know, like that you know me somehow, or just acknowledge if you don't know me. Hopefully I'm kind of making sense on this, right? Like the mass automated emails for me, they're not going to go far.
No. Great advice. All right. So I have a few questions. I may not get to all of them, but I do want to kind of bring to the top a few questions just around, I think, maybe trends, John, that you are seeing. And I would say I word it as innovation themes that maybe you can share with founders today, maybe that you're focused on. 2 specific trends that maybe you can just touch on slightly or give an opinion or statement about that 2 attendees have asked about is compliance or lack thereof with certain drugs. And can you talk about themes or trends around adherence or compliance? And then the second is, so emotional and cognitive aspects of a patient's physical condition, and how like any innovative themes that maybe you're thinking about that might deal with emotional or mental support during a treatment with a pharmaceutical.
Yeah. So let me answer those questions first, and then I'll touch upon another theme we're focusing on.
Yep.
So I think both of those questions, and when you say compliance, you're talking about medication adherence?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, here, I actually, Fernando, I may allow you to come off and make sure I got your question correct.
Oh, thank you, Eller. Yeah, I was talking about adherence, John, and basically the thing is that, in my opinion, there are many aspects that affect lack of patient adherence, which is a problem that has been trying to solve like forever since I remember.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get your opinion on, what is it that is the greatest hurdle or the greatest problem affecting lack of compliance?
Yeah. So it's funny we're discussing this because I just read an article like an hour ago that talks about, I put both of those comments under kind of patient support solutions, right? And whether it's directly to the patient or includes the family, loved ones, caregivers as well, there are a bunch of solutions out there, a bunch of good solutions. And maybe some of them are oncology focused, some of them are more primary care focused, some of them are super disease state specific focused. But I feel like a lot of them are realizing it's not just about the physical aspects you may be experiencing through this disease or sickness and trying to manage that. It's also the mental and emotional aspect as well, especially if you're a caregiver, but a patient very much as well. Like having cancer, having being very sick is super tough. And I'm not sick, thankfully, or anything like that, but I have days where I need like emotional support and mental support, right? So I couldn't imagine being a patient and needing that. And so being able to recognize the need and provide the appropriate advice or guidance or support or motivation, whatever form you're doing it, all in one app or whatever the form of the solution is important. And we realize it's important at Astellas, and we, again, are always trying to improve the patient outcomes. And so we're thinking about how can we get these solutions in the hands of our patients, because beyond just providing the support and motivation, it does address like, hey, if you take this medication, you'll probably experience these side effects. And I feel like that's one big hurdle we face for compliance or adherence is, I'm taking this medication, but I feel really bad. So this isn't worth it. I'm not going to take it anymore. But if you can get out in front of that and say, hey, listen, if you take this medication, you'll probably feel like this, but here are ways to manage that, right? Like drink some extra water, or here are some exercises, or here's ways to adjust your diet, or the medication's best used at this time. That may help. And I think doing that in the broader form of a patient support solution is a big focus of ours right now. And the other, I guess I'll pause there. Did I answer the question about compliance?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly did. This, what you're saying certainly helps. And I agree. I think emotion is a big component of it. And just want to get your brains or pick your brains around that, because there's also other things like, cost of medication. You also mentioned family involvement and caregiver involvement. Another thing that I believe it's important is communication with doctors. But yes, it is just that there's so many things that I just want to hear you on what you thought was the most important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no, definitely no problem. And you make other good points, right? It's not just physical or emotional, it's financial as well. And so thank you for reminding me. The article I read, there are a lot of solutions out there, but they're not necessarily used that frequently by patients now. And why is that? This is what the article said, so take it with a grain of salt. Lack of familiarity. Patients just don't know about this, right? There may be the best financial support system ever for drug ABC, but they don't take advantage of it because they don't know about it, right? And we shouldn't solely be relying on providers to communicate these opportunities to patients, whether it be financial, mental, physical support. We, need to get it out there, whether it's on social media or whether it's out on the internet or the appropriate sites that patients like WebMD or whatever it is. I think it's on us as a pharmaceutical manufacturer marketing, if we partner with these digital solutions and there's opportunities for patients, we need to get in front of the patients, get in front of the caregivers, educate them that these opportunities are available. Because again, I can't take advantage of a solution if I have no idea it exists. So I'm by no means a marketing expert. I'll stop there on my comment on that. But getting it, the solution is great when it exists, and it's even better when people use it and are aware of it. And another focus area of ours, getting back to your original question to Eller, is telehealth, right? And I feel like people almost like cringe at the word now just because we've heard it so many times for the past 18 months, but we've heard it so many times for a reason. And, I think there's articles, of course, like, yes, it went up in COVID and now it's coming back down, but it may be above versus where it was below. And personally, I think it's going to grow, COVID or no COVID, because patients have experienced the efficiency and seamless integration of it. I think we as a society have grown to get whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want it. And I think healthcare, is going to catch up to that. And if I want to see my doctor, I'm going to want to see my doctor from my kitchen table or couch. I'm not going to want to go into the waiting room. But again, I know I'm just speaking for me, not all patients. Healthcare is obviously a contact sport. I get that. you should definitely be in the provider doctor's office at the appropriate times. But I think there are a lot of opportunities where you don't necessarily have to be at the doctor's office. And beyond just having that telehealth appointment, having medication shipped directly to your door in a safe, compliant, and discreet way, I think goes a long way as well. So we're putting a pretty strong focus on that as well.
Great. Well, so I love to keep these, right at 50, 55 minutes, give everyone, a few minutes back of their day. So John, any closing remarks maybe that you want to touch on of, again, additional themes that you and your team are thinking about, or maybe shifts in the industry or trends that founders should be thinking about or be aware of, to close things out here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm aware of any shifts or trends that anybody else is not aware of. We don't have the crystal ball at Astellas, but I think I think things are going digital. I think everybody on this call with a focus in digital health and innovation, we're in the right place. We're the future kind of thing. And if we just, keep our eyes on the prize and at the end of the day, how can we help patients? That's what we're all trying to do. And when it comes to me, again, I'm an open book. I do appreciate some preparation as to, how you see yourself partnering with Astellas, but short of that, I'm more than happy to have any conversation with anybody at any time, as long as my schedule allows it. And I really appreciate the time this afternoon, Eller, and had a lot of fun.
Likewise. Well, thank you so much for joining in the conversation today. For everyone on the call, I will share, John, I'll likely just send your LinkedIn, and we can start there. If anyone on the call is really angling to get in touch with John, feel free to shoot me an email and I can get you two in touch very, very easily. Thank you all for attending. This is recorded, so if you have a friend or a colleague that missed it that you think might find it interesting, we'll be sharing the recording with everyone that registered, likely in the next day or early next week. So again, thank you so much for a great session of Jumpstart Distilled. John, you're a fantastic speaker, and I'll look forward to talking to you soon. And thank you, Paul Reisner, who gave me the exact quote. I have only made this letter longer because I have not had the time to make it shorter, from, I believe, Blaise Pascal. So we'll end there. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.